And good evening. Welcome to Toilets to Title Sunday Night Live. I'm your host, Jason, and with me, I have two regulars and a special guest for Sunday Night Roundtable. I called it Sunday Night Live, which is what we called it last year. It's the Sunday Night Roundtable. I'm going to go ahead and get to our special guest, the guy who jumped in because we didn't pull in a different guest. But I'm going to call him Wicked. His name's Dylan. Wicked, welcome to the Sunday Night Roundtable.
How we doing, fellas?
Doing very well this evening. I've got Monday off. It's my wife's birthday. I don't have to work tomorrow, so cheers to all of you who don't have to work tomorrow. With us, as always, some people call him Dennis. I like to call him David. David, how you doing this evening?
Just getting ready, man. Less than 72 hours before the twins are here, so I've been quite hectic the last couple days.
So have you made a plan in case the wife's water breaks between now and then?
We're just kind of praying that doesn't happen because she isn't technically due till April 11th. She's having a C-section, though, which is why they were able to schedule it, and they scheduled it when, being twins, they scheduled it early because she's not going to make it that long. I'm surprised she has made it this long. It feels like every single day she's gotten a little bit bigger. So yeah, the plan right now is exactly what Pete said, run. They luckily, they have us in Cincinnati, which is about 45 minutes away, but there's a closer hospital that they told us to go to if it happens.
Here's what I would say.
This stuff.
What I did,
Nick Romer.
What I did for my wife, and she had no idea, or on our first child, her water did break while we were asleep in bed. Put towels under her side, under the sheets, just in case. That way you don't ruin the mattress. It can be a lifesaver. George, I'm going to get to you last here after the birthing talk. How are you doing this evening?
Absolutely fantastic. All my kids are out of the house. My wife is definitely not pregnant with twins, and she can't get pregnant by me anyway, so I don't have to worry about that no more. So yeah, I'm just over here living life, living fantastic.
So let me ask you, George, and this is totally not football related, but I feel like that's what the opening of the show is for. I know you can't get her pregnant. Can she still get pregnant?
She can. And if she gets pregnant, she also gets a divorce with it. So they go hand in hand.
I was gonna say it sounds like if she gets pregnant, there's a different issue to deal with.
Yes, there's really not a lot to discuss at that point. Yeah, if she gets pregnant, she gets served, and we just go on from there. We've discussed it. It's fine. Everything's kosher and happy over here at the Reed home.
Well, so I always tell my wife, because my wife always tells me, look, because she made it so we can't have another child. And speaking of child, that's my son, Eli. So good evening, Eli. She always says that we can't have more kids. She made sure of it. And I have to remind her, no, you can't have more kids. I'm still good. Anyway, we can get off that now. I do want to say, Dina, I haven't officially met you, but good luck with the twins, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. We'll be praying for you.
I need to address this comment. I have okay, I'm not bald. I have just a little bit less hair than Wicked, but I am not bald, not by any means. I don't know who this Facebook user is. You were on my good side for the comments like this, and comments like this, like. I really did like you, but then you started to call me bald, and I didn't appreciate that.
So
it's getting there. Take that hat off. Take that hat off again, George.
Yeah, it's getting there.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's a good head of hair.
I mean, not nearly as quick as mine.
If
I let this grow, it's right around here. So,
you know what?
George is going to grow his beard up into this.
It's not balding right here. Like, this is still very at the ripe age of 44. This part of the head right here still has strong roots. It still grows. I have to go get a haircut every couple of months. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Nick is one of our members. He's a Ravens fan. He also cheers for the Packers. So I always got to take crap from him.
Well, so speaking of one of our users, he's likely a member of our Gilded Chat. And our Gilded Chat, it's kind of like Discord. It's 200 people talking fantasy football at any given moment. It makes us at Toilets to Titles one of the most accessible groups out there. You can talk to us pretty much any time of the day. I don't think Coach ever sleeps. He's always on the app talking football. Basically 24/7. I don't know how he does it. It is absolutely free to join. You just have to email toiletstitles@gmail.com. Justin and Coach will get you into our Gilded Chat. Like I said, it's free. And if you want to throw us a little bit of money, first of all, you can throw a little bit of money here. But you can also donate or join our Patreon, patreon.com/toiletstitles. And there's a level for every salary. Basically, we do giveaways. During the season, we have special shows just for Patreon members. We do a lot for our Patreons, and so if you'd like to join us, patreon.com/toiletstotitles. So with that, dude, I really thought last week was this incredible week of NFL news, and it was only going to get better. Slowed down a little bit, but there was still some pretty juicy news. For example, Sneed is now a Tennessee Titan. The Chiefs got a third-round pick and a swap of the 2024 seventh-round pick. The move does free up $20 million in cap space for the Chiefs. So, better deal for Titans or for the Chiefs? And I'll let David, who's joking over there, laughing and joking with the Facebook page. And actually, we got to make this happen. This has to happen. But from now on, like, it's got to be a big donation to make him do it in perpetuity. So we'll work that out for sure. David, good deal for the Chiefs, bad deal for the Chiefs. What do you think?
I mean, you're losing a talented cornerback, probably one of the most talented younger cornerbacks that have been out there. But I think the cap space is the most important part here. Realistically, the extra pick is nice and all that, but getting that much cap space to fill out the rest of your roster when your quarterback costs so much is always a beautiful thing. As much as I hate the Chiefs, dominating, I don't like any team other than the Steelers dominating. So.
You've been disappointed for a handful of years.
Yes, I have. Our mediocreness. But we're back this year. Let's go. I say that
back
every year.
With Russ. Wicked, yes. What do you think? Good for the Chiefs, bad for the Chiefs?
I mean, they'll figure it out because they're the Chiefs and they have Patrick Mahomes, and it doesn't really matter. But it's got to hurt because he's so good, and they didn't really get much for him because of the cap number. That was the whole point, was freeing up their cap space. So they didn't really get what he's actually worth in trade because of his cap hit. So that sucks for them, but you got to do what you got to do when you ain't got no money.
That's a good point, George.
So this whole situation with Ladarius Sneed is really confusing, at least to me, and here's why. So they franchise tagged him. So they the first 2 weeks of free agency, they locked up $20 million in cap. That was $20 million they could not use to go out and pursue free agents because they didn't have it because they had Ladarius Sneed locked up on a franchise tag, which, if I'm not mistaken, the first couple of weeks of free agency are probably the most important, but it's where you can get some of the best players. So, and then they went ahead and they traded him for a third-round pick, which I don't mind that because if Ladarius Sneed would have left in free agency, they probably would have got a third-round compensatory pick anyway. So they got a third-round pick for him in next year's draft, and it's probably going to be the Titans. So you probably figure it's going to be anywhere between 12 to maybe 15 selections earlier than what they would have gotten with the compensatory pick. So, I mean, the trade, it worked out. They would have got a third for him. They got an earlier third. That's fine, especially with somebody that they didn't plan to keep long term. Because if they would have let him ride on the franchise tag this year, there's a good chance that he probably wasn't re-signing with them next year, and he would have walked and they would have gotten a compensatory pick next year, or 2 years from now. So they got an earlier third, but it was bad mismanagement and cap mismanagement by the Chiefs, which is something you don't expect from that organization as efficiently as they've been ran the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess you could argue, you don't have the $20 million if you keep him, but if you do let him walk, and even if you do get a later third round comp pick because he walks in free agency, you have Sneed all year, right? Like, so it's not they're getting, you're guessing 12 to 15 picks earlier, third round pick next year for what was a Pro Bowl caliber corner last year. I don't know. I think also, like, how do you not work out a deal where you can get that cap space back this year anyway, and then just pass that money on to future years where you can just keep kicking the can down the road? Like, they could have freed up that money with other deals. I don't know.
It's kind of like what they did with Tyreek Hill, because they did the exact same thing with Tyreek Hill. They franchise tagged him, and then they ended up trading him, and they got a boatload from Miami for him. So that ended up, that worked out. But it's just one of those things where, locking up that much of your cap at the beginning of free agency to just turn around and trade him for a third round pick, like, congratulations to the Titans. You got a great deal. The Titans definitely got the better end of that transaction for sure. But it just didn't make any sense to me.
Well, so speaking of the Titans, they've signed Sneed, Pollard, and Ridley, all the big contracts, right? Like, all massive contracts for their position. Do we think that the Titans have done enough to not be considered a dumpster fire this year? Wicked, I'm starting with you.
That's going to likely depend on Will Levis. If he can take a step forward, he showed some flashes last year, but he is not yet a franchise quarterback, somebody that you can build around long term. He's got to go out there and show that. If he can take a step forward this year, and I think that they've done a lot to try to help him do that, I think they put him in a good position to improve upon his rookie season. So, yeah, if he can show that he's somebody you can build around, then they might have something going over there this year.
David, agree?
Yeah, I like, it other than Houston's sudden, dominance, or not really dominance, prominence, I guess you could say, coming in from last year and having so much money to continue building, the Jags kind of feel like they've just kind of been stagnant. It's still an open division in my eyes, so I don't see them. I kind of see them the way I saw, Houston last year. I said that they would win more games than people expected. I didn't expect Houston to make it to the playoffs, but I did expect them to make, I think I said 6 wins at the beginning of the season.
So this is not on our doc, but it is a question being asked, so I figured I'd throw this out there without any real prep work or, who's your guys' guess for worst NFL record? I've got 2 in mind. One's the Patriots, 2's the Vikings. Patriots are going to depend on who they draft at quarterback, and then obviously the Vikings the same way. Anybody besides those 2 come to mind real quick?
I was going to go
Carolina's going to be terrible again.
Possible.
I'm going to go. I'm going to go Patriots. I can't go Minnesota. They got too many weapons on the offense, and they got a decent defense. You still got Justin Jefferson. You still got Jordan Addison. You still have T.J. Hawkinson. You still have that they brought in Aaron Jones. Like, that offense, even if they get a game manager type quarterback, they should in theory be okay. They won't have the worst record in the NFL. Will they make the playoffs? Maybe, maybe not. But they're not going to have one of the worst records in the NFL. Like, they're not a dumpster fire right now, like New England.
They're talking about trading Jefferson, so I don't know, man. Like,
until
they also play against. They're also playing against, like, the Packers, who are coming up, the Lions, who are coming up, and then the Bears. If Caleb Williams is any good, it's going to make that team competitive. So, like, in division is going to be tough for them. I don't know. It's just. And then Sam Darnold is their quarterback, depending on what they can do with their 2 firsts. But that's going to be tough for them. But yeah, I think the Patriots are worse. David?
For me, it's any of the 3 teams not named the Chiefs in the AFC West. I think that they're all kind of just in the air right now, other than the Chiefs, who seem to be just steady.
How bad is Russell Wilson that they're paying him $35 million not to play there and rolling with Jared Stidham as their quarterback?
I think it was. I'm hoping anyway. As a Steelers fan, it was just a bad fit. That happens. I've seen it happen where a guy goes from one system to another, and it turns out that system just isn't right for him. He looked a little bit better last year, but they weren't really letting him do what he normally does. So I'm hoping that him and Arthur Smith can get together and show something. If not, sit him, throw in Justin Fields and see what he's got. And if that don't work out, then we'll just reset next year.
Justin Fields is going to be a real popular guy by midseason with your fan base.
Yeah,
the backup quarterback is.
I've always been against Ohio State quarterbacks. Stroud is the first one who's ever impressed me, and now I have to cheer for one.
The backup quarterback is always the favorite person on the team for the fans.
He's the savior.
All right, guys. The Browns and wide receiver Jerry Jeudy have agreed to a 3-year contract extension worth up to $58 million, including $41 million fully guaranteed at signing, according to Tom Pelissero. Jerry Jeudy gets the bag. Does this make sense to anybody? I'm just gonna ask open. I'm just gonna say, does this signing make sense to anybody? Anyone?
I think that the Browns need to stop having alcoholic beverages at their team meetings. Like, hey, let's go and sign Deshaun Watson to a 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed contract that he's not even going to be able to play for the first year and a half, and then he sucks. And now you're paying a guy who's never done nothing to go to a running team, and you're paying him like he's a starting wide receiver who's been producing for years. It makes no sense to me at all.
Not to mention Nick Chubb is. I love Nick Chubb, but man, he got hurt bad, and I don't know how he's going to recover. This is the second injury on that same leg, right? And they owe him a boatload of cash. You can't let him go because he's the face of the franchise, and they're a running team, and they didn't do a lot in free agency at the running back position, and it's a weak draft class for running backs. But man, you're paying that much to Deshaun Watson and Jerry Jeudy, and then you've got an injured Nick Chubb. Just tough, man.
I think Nick Chubb will be just fine. Have you ever seen his previous injury? It literally was the exact same thing. He's been through this. He knows exactly how to recover, and he came back just fine from the last one. Is he a little bit older? Sure. But has medicine come a little bit further? Yes. I think it balances itself out. He's not going to ever be the guy he was, but I think he'll be just fine.
I can't imagine having a second one, not negative. I don't want to do double negative. I can't imagine a second of the same injury on the same leg being good for that leg. How about that?
If you compare them to each other, the pitchers, it's literally the same exact thing happened both times. It was disgusting.
Let's see. So Jerry says, Brown's about to make a nosedive. Everyone else in that division is truly playoff contenders.
I actually was thinking last week that the Browns are going to be the Steelers' best competition this year. I think the Bengals are going to fall off a little bit. I think the Ravens are going to fall off harder than anybody realizes. But that's just because I really don't like when teams get rid of so many coaches and coordinators. The change is usually not in the positive when they get rid of that many.
All right. What I've got here next, it's going to be hard for Coach to hear, but Cowboys seem to be willing to let Dak Prescott hit the market in 2025. They'll have no QB that is currently on the roster signed to a deal and have $95 million in cap space in 2025 if they don't get a deal done with Dak. George, I'll start with you. Do you see the Cowboys rolling into this season without locking up Dak to an extension?
Why don't you throw this over to the Cowboy fan on the panel here?
He's the last guy.
You want to close
got
with
a
his
smile.
opinion? Okay.
I was going to let him go last.
Okay. All right. So if Dak Prescott does not resign and he hits the market, he'll be joining Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Jacoby Brissett, Tua Tagovailoa, Taylor Heineke. You get the point. I'm not going to go any further than that. Jameis Winston, Justin, what's his name, Fields. Those are all unrestricted free agents next year. So it's as of right now on paper. And paper is, I mean, it can be crumpled up, thrown away. Look at the potential free agent wide receiver class this year, and then what it turned into. But there's a bunch of quarterbacks on there. Do I think they let Dak test for, free agency? No. I think that they actually get a deal done. They lock him up, and they move on from there. But if they were to let him go, there are some half decent options available should they actually hit the free agent market.
Dennis, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I think that they end up getting a deal done. It's, probably the reason they haven't done anything else this free agency period. They're just sitting there, waiting to see how much of their money they got to count to give the Dak.
And then finally, I'll move over to Wicked, but I'm going to do it with this. Jerry Bagsaw says Dak will retire a Cowboy. Do you agree or disagree?
Probably. Here's the problem is that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys front office have no leverage. They know they have no leverage because Dak has a no trade clause and he has a no cap clause in his contract, or a no tag clause in his contract. So they can't franchise tag him. They can't trade him without his permission. And there's no extension in place currently. So Dak can pretty much go in there and say, hey, give me everything that I want. I'm not negotiating. I'm not budging. And they just have to either agree or go into 2025 without a quarterback. And so I think there's a little bit of a stalemate going on because Dak probably knows this and his agent knows this. And so their ask is probably very high. I think that they need to get an extension done because it would be malpractice, in my opinion, to not extend Prescott. I don't care if you think he's a good quarterback or a bad one. He's been more than good enough to win games for Dallas. And there aren't better alternatives out there. There's not just awesome quarterbacks on the street ready for you to go grab. I think the only reason that I can see that they would not extend Dak is if they see something special in Trey Lance and want to build around him, want to give him a shot to take over as the younger guy. They could sign him to an extension that's much, much cheaper and kind of reset their money clock around a younger quarterback. But he would have to really impress in the offseason and in the preseason for them to try to make that type of move. But I don't foresee that happening. I would definitely assume that Dak gets an extension at some point this offseason because his cap number is so big for 2024, and it would be irresponsible to just let him walk for nothing.
Yeah, I can't see it happening, but then again, as George mentioned, Jameis Winston is out there, Tua is out there, Justin Fields is out there. I don't know.
Yeah, but how many of those guys actually get to free agency and don't get tagged?
That's true. Yeah, and then Justin Fields can, if he plays well, if he actually plays, and the Steelers like him, they can do the 5th-year option. And
don't we have to do the 5th-year option before May of this year?
Yeah, it's true.
Yes.
That is true.
They're not doing the 5th-year option. That guarantees them for over $24 million a year. They're not going to do that.
$24 million when you have Russell Wilson for $1.5 million or whatever that number is next to nothing for a quarterback. I don't know. It's honestly not a bad for a starting quarterback of Fields' caliber in today's NFL. 23 or 24 million is not too bad, but
he's got to show he's of that caliber first.
Right. And how do you do that before May?
Right. That's the issue. I think they probably already talked to Justin Fields. He knows that it's going to be based on his performance if we sign him further. I've been looking into it a little bit because I didn't understand why they took so little for him. But apparently the Bears really did want to do right by him because they felt like they didn't, his entire career, I guess, so far. And Pittsburgh was where he wanted to go, somewhere he thought he could have a shot to actually play and start for the long run, and somewhere that he thought, has a winning culture. So I think he's okay with not getting the 5th year signed, and they'll work a deal out later on based on what he does this year.
Yeah, rumors had it that the Eagles offered more. I guess. But he's never going to start ahead of Hurts. So apparently the Bears wanted to do right by him, which they didn't do by getting him weapons or an offensive line or competent offensive coaches or so. I guess on the way out the door, it's nice to be good to him. I guess.
Yeah, they saved all that for Williams.
All right. Let's see. Mike Williams signed with the Jets. We didn't get to talk about that last week because it happened after we did our show. Who here's a big Mike Williams fan again? Who's going to get burned by the way that he starts the season and then gets hurt? Anybody? No. Okay, good. I'm not alone there. I do think it's good for Aaron Rodgers, but we'll talk about that in a minute. George, go ahead.
I just want to know who plays more games this year. Aaron Rodgers, Tyrone Smith, or Mike Williams?
I'm going to go Aaron Rodgers because he's a quarterback. But so unless he's a vice presidential candidate,
he's announced he's been eliminated from contention.
Of course. Let's see. And then last thing I've got here is Falcons are under investigation for tampering with Kirk Cousins. The investigation stems from comments Kirk made in his introductory press conference. And I bet you the Falcons are going, thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that. It's, I guess he mentioned that some members of the team had communications directly with him. And at that point during the negotiating period, teams were only supposed to be able to talk to the agent. So, George, I know your team lost some picks for this a few years ago. Do you want the Falcons' head on a platter for this, or what do you think? What do you think the league's going to do here?
I don't want their head on a platter. I'm not that type of individual. I just think the precedent has been set that it should cost them a first-round pick because that's what it cost other teams. So if you're going to be fair and you're going to, punish equally, it should be a first-round pick. And also, I read that this not only goes back to the offseason, but this dates back as far as like week 13 or 14 of last year that they were talking to him. So while he was out injured with his Achilles injury, representatives from Atlanta were talking to Kirk Cousins about coming to play for Atlanta. So it dates back a lot further than most people actually realize.
So I think if they can prove that they talked to him for a all right, welcome back, Wicked. I think if they can prove that they talked to him well before like this negotiating period, then yeah, first has to go. If it truly was they were talking to him directly and not just his agent, I think probably a third is where they'll settle. So like I think the first you're talking about was the Dolphins who was talking to Brady in the offseason and having him on the yacht, on the owner's yacht, and I think they also talked to a coach that that they were under contract, who was under contract with another team. So it was multiple contacts and not even during a negotiating period. I think that would be the difference. But if they can prove they were talking to Kirk Cousins, and I think there were some rumors Kyle Pitts was talking to him, trying to get him to come over, and that may or may not have been at the behest of the Falcons organization. If it was, then it's clear. Then yeah, maybe a first is warranted. But as of now, I think this really just stems from comments that Kirk made, which it's like, if you're a Falcon, aren't you going, dude, what are you talking about? Why would you do that to us? Dennis, what do you think? First warranted here?
I mean, again, it depends on the severity of it to me. I think it's all silliness. I mean, follow the rules. It's real simple. Just stop doing it and you won't lose your draft picks. How much leeway could you really have gotten in those, if it was only 2 days, before free agency? How much influence did you actually get over Kirk Cousins? He probably was coming there anyway.
Well, how many of these guys do you think actually aren't talking with the teams they signed for? Like, I know the agents are doing it. Don't we think they all are doing it? And, Kirk just couldn't keep his mouth shut?
Yeah, listen, their agents are on the screen and the players just over here off the screen. They're there. They don't want to go to a team that they've had zero communication with. They want to know where they're headed. They're right over there off camera.
All right, and then before we get into our risers and fallers, I do want to mention that Jerry Bradshaw asks a question: if Rodgers is healthy all year, do the Jets win that division? I'm going to start with George as the Dolphin fan.
No, the Jets will not win the division even with the healthy Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, they've had splashy moves this offseason. Tyrone Smith, Mike Williams. Hopefully they get Aaron Rodgers back. But, like, when's the last time Tyrone Smith played a full season? If I'm not mistaken, he's only played 30 games the last 4 seasons. Mike Williams, he's 30 coming off an injury. He's not getting any younger. I don't know when the last time he played a full season was. Yeah, the defense is fantastic. Their offensive line is still trash. They have not beat the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are like 8-0 against them the last 4 years. The Buffalo Bills, I think, are 7-1 against them the last 4 years. The Buffalo still is the front runner for that division. And then it's Miami, then it's the Jets, and then there's a huge drop off before you get to the Patriots. But no, it's the Jets do not win that division.
All right, so George may be too close to it. Wicked, do you agree with him though?
Yeah, I would actually say Miami's won in that division. I don't think the Bills are going to be nearly as good as they've been in the past this year. I think they're going to take a step back, and I think Miami's going to take that division. I think the Bills could be as low as third. I think the Jets might be second. I don't think they're going to take it though. And just like George said, it's a health thing. They've brought in some good players this offseason, but they're not going to stay healthy for the full year. So,
and then Dennis, David.
I mean, we've seen this defense be ridiculously dominant, but the offense, no matter who was behind center, and they've tried just about everybody that was. If you were a quarterback and you were anywhere in the zip code, they were hollering for you. So I'm not convinced that Aaron Rodgers is the end all be all to fix it. I just said, 10 minutes ago that quarterbacks going to new systems, they don't always work out. We got to see him for all of 4 plays. For all we know, he was going to be just as garbage as the rest of those quarterbacks. We have no idea what he was going to look like. So I'm unconvinced that this offense is going to be a juggernaut just because you throw Aaron Rodgers back there. I do think their defense is championship level, and if Aaron Rodgers comes in and does what he's done in the past, then the rest of the division needs to be on the lookout. I also agree with Wicked about the Dolphins being a touch above the Bills right now.
I'm pretty surprised that the answer for their backup quarterback woes was Tyrod Taylor, who's been okay as a backup. But I don't know. Not that there was a great backup out there, but I probably would have rather had Jimmy G or I don't know. There's got to be somebody out there that could have been better than Tyrod if something were to happen to Aaron Rodgers again. Let's face it, it's a step up from Zach Wilson for sure, but that's not always that's not what I was thinking they would do after what happened to them last year. All right, guys. Well, so the next segment we're going to get into is risers and fallers. We're going to go through. Each of us have picked a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end on people who have gone up after the first week of free agency or the first couple weeks of free agency and who have gone down. And we'll go through them pretty quickly because we've got a bunch of them. So we are going to start with quarterbacks. And George, you picked Will Levis as your quarterback riser. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, we mentioned it earlier. They signed Calvin Ridley. They brought in Tony Pollard. They've addressed a huge need on their defense, which is cornerback position. I really think Will Levis is going to take a step forward this year. He had flashes last year. He's got a big arm. The biggest thing that he really needs is an offensive line. And I think they address the offensive line in the draft. I think if Joe Alt is there when they pick, he's a slam dunk pick for them in the draft to get the franchise left tackle. So they've done everything possible to make Will Levis and put him in a very successful position. I like the offseason moves that they've made. We'll get into some of my followers also coming from this team a little bit later. There's just a little foreshadowing, but I absolutely love this for Will Levis. I think it moves him up in fantasy right now to a borderline quarterback one with the talent that they have in offense.
Is anybody here not buy into Will Levis improving? I mean, I can't say improving because improving from where he was is going to be pretty easy as a standard. But like, does anybody here not see him as a borderline one?
I might say mid QB2.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely gonna be better than last year, but he's still, you could see it if you watch him play he's very chaotic. He's still got a lot to learn. He doesn't play in rhythm very often. I think they did a lot to help him this year, but he's gonna have to make some pretty great strides to break into QB1 territory.
Yeah, I think his inability to see pressure is his biggest issue. And teams figured that out pretty quickly and just threw the house at him. And he never improved from that. So, maybe with an offseason under his belt, watching film, studying a little bit, like maybe that improves. And they gave him what he needed to be successful there. So hopefully with Ridley there joining Hopkins and Pollard, hopefully for the Titans' sake, like he can figure it out. So David, you've got Bryce Young as your quarterback riser. Why don't you speak on that a little bit? Because I can tell you I watched a lot of their games last year, and I didn't see a lot of flashes at anything. So what do you see? What do you believe is the reason that Bryce Young is going to have an improvement this year?
I mean, Deontay Johnson's a lot of it, but also he can't really fall much further back. I mean, he could rise just a little bit and be like, a QB 2.5 and be better than he was last year. Like, I don't see him going all the way up to QB1 or anything, but they drafted him number 1 overall for a reason. He's a talented kid. You got a better team around him, another year in the system. I wish they had kept their coach because, again, that's one of the most important things when you're when you're raising up a new quarterback is continuity. And until they have that in Carolina, they're just going to keep faltering. But yeah, as of right now, I think he's probably has the most potential to rise.
So not that contracts mean head coach contracts mean much in Carolina, but they did sign Dave Canales, I believe, to a 6-year deal. So that could give some continuity, assuming that he makes it past 6 games into the season or whatever. But Dave Canales has been good with quarterbacks. It's kind of one of the reasons why they signed him. Baker last year, Geno Smith the year before, Russ before that. Dave Canales has been around with a lot of quarterbacks that haven't looked great before or after he left. So potentially that's a reason why Young could have a resurgence this year as well. Wicked, you actually picked Baker Mayfield, the guy that Dave Canales left.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's going to have a good year this year?
Well, I think he had a good year last year. He earned that contract that they gave him this offseason, and then they did him a big solid by making sure Mike Evans didn't leave. I think they got a really solid skill positions down there in Tampa with Evans and Godwin and the emergence of Trey McBride. And then you got running Rashad White. I'm sorry, not Trey McBride, Rashad White. Had a little bit of a brain fart there, but no, White I think is a great pass catching back, and then they've got a lot down there that will allow Baker Mayfield to be successful, and I think he's going to build on his performance from last year and continue to improve. Second year in the offense, second year with the team. I think he's going to take another little step forward. I don't think he's got a lot of ceiling left in him because he's been in the league for so long now that as a quarterback, he kind of is what he is. But I think that you could see him be a very reliable high-end QB2 in fantasy. It's not a sexy person to put in your lineup, but I think he's going to provide a pretty decent floor.
What's interesting about Baker this year is he did lose his offensive coordinator, so it keeps the streak alive of him not having the same offensive coordinator 2 years in a row. But what's interesting about that is the Bucs signed Liam Cohen from Kentucky and then from the Rams. He was actually the offensive coordinator for the Rams when Baker was there, so it'll be the first time he's had the same offensive coordinator, even if it's for a different team. So little tidbit there for a guy who can't keep the same either head coach or offensive coordinator going in his NFL career. So my pick was Aaron Rodgers. Look, it's hard not to take a step up when your first game 8 plays into your season. You tear you run out onto the field with the flag. You got all the Jets fans screaming, super excited. Eight plays in, you tear your Achilles. Hard not to go up from there. I do think Mike Williams, for as long as he's healthy, is a good number 2. It's better than what the Jets had at number 2 last year. He's got Garrett Wilson. He's got Mike Williams. Lazard's still there, I think. And then nobody's talking about – we haven't talked about when we talked about the Jets, but Breece Hall, 100% healthy coming off the injury 2 years ago. He started the year hurt last year. Got better as the season went on. Obviously a stud running back. That offense is kind of ready to explode if they can keep it all healthy. George doesn't think it'll happen. I can't say I blame him, but I'm going to pick Aaron Rodgers because you guys picked mine. You guys all picked ones I wanted, so I had to take the obvious with Aaron Rodgers. All right. We're going to move on to running backs, and I'm going to assume that this first one, even though he didn't put his name on it, George, you took Saquon Barkley. Talk about Saquon.
Well, he's playing on the best team he's ever played on. With the best offense, even with Jason Kelce retiring, he's still got the best offensive line he's had. With the best quarterback he's ever had. With the best skill set wide receivers he's ever had. With the best tight end he's ever had. Yeah, I like Saquon Barkley.
Even with the tush push and Saquon not getting carries from the 1, the carries inside the 5 have to go up a ton going from the Giants to the Eagles. So even if he doesn't get the scoring opportunities from the 1, he's going to get more scoring opportunities from the 5 and in than he did all last year with the Giants. I see you nodding over there. You have anything to add, David?
No, I took my guy because he took Saquon. Saquon was mine as well.
Wicked, do you agree? Yeah, I mean, I think we all probably would have said Saquon coming out of, anytime you can move away from the Giants, there's not a lot of teams with that offensive line from last year where you have a decent running back and put them on a new team, they wouldn't rise, right? And then you make it the talent of Saquon. And I don't know, did you guys see, I saw a little nugget earlier that when Saquon told his kid that, hey, we're moving from New York, his daughter said, "Does that mean we're gonna win now?" Poor Joe and the Giants fans. But
I seen that. It was hilarious.
And Jerry, I will post yours after we get through ours because I do agree with you, but we'll go from there. We'll talk about that one in a minute. David, you picked Josh Jacobs. Talk about Josh Jacobs on the Packers.
Yeah, I just see him. I mean, first off, he's the old guy on that team now instead of being the young guy. I mean, that team's got some of the youngest skill position guys, and you saw last year how much Jordan Love liked to throw the ball, and they have the weapons to do it. So I think Josh Jacobs is going to not be needed as much as he was ridden in Las Vegas. I think that he's going to – so then now you have a guy who's healthy and doesn't have to, come out here and touch the rock 25, 30 times a game. We saw what he could do when he was doing that and, what it did to him in his second year. His second year after having his blow-up year. I think he's just going to be fresh and healthy and able to excel in that offense. There's also so many weapons there. Other than Devonta, you didn't have anything to worry about with Las Vegas. Green Bay's got weapons everywhere now.
I think the biggest thing for Josh Jacobs is the quarterback's not Jimmy Garoppolo or or Aiden O'Connell. Like, I think that's the biggest. There's the threat downfield. Even though Devontae Adams is good, defenses didn't have to guard him too much because Aiden O'Connell wasn't getting him the ball. So I think it's a good move for both sides, and I think you're right. He is going to increase there. Wicked, you've got somebody we've talked about already. You picked Breece Hall. Why don't you talk about Breece Hall a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, this just comes down to, I think that offense is going to be a lot better, and there's going to be a lot more scoring opportunity with Aaron Rodgers. I expect that Rodgers is going to be healthy for the whole year. The quarterback position is not one that typically you see a ton of consecutive season injuries at, and his was kind of just a freak accident. So I think that offense is going to be much better. They're going to score a lot more points, and I think that means lighter boxes for Breece Hall and more touchdown opportunities. I think that overall RB1 is definitely in the realm of possibility for Breece Hall in 2024.
Anybody disagree with Breece Hall being RB1? George?
Yeah, but you'll get to my next, so we'll leave it at that.
All right. Yeah, I gotta do mine. I've got Bijan Robinson as an obvious riser. Look, he's got competent quarterback play coming in. He lost to Arthur Smith. He's incredibly talented. He's good out of the backfield running. He's good catching the ball. Not a lot to say about Bijan. It's just nice that we'll probably see less and less of other running backs and more of Bijan Robinson there. So easy peasy to pick that one. Jerry's name here is interesting. I'll just go around and say, does anybody disagree with Najee being a riser this year, given that their quarterback play should improve?
I mean, I think quarterback play, their entire play. I mean, we got rid of Matt Canada and our offense improved automatically. Now you improve the quarterbacks as well. And I'm not sure that Arthur Smith was the problem in Atlanta. Did you see those quarterbacks? We've seen Arthur Smith in other places have successful offenses. We haven't seen those quarterbacks do anything anywhere, and then we're blaming everything on Arthur Smith. I'm saying it might have been the quarterbacks.
I mean, look, anytime you use Bijan Robinson the way they used him, and Tyler Algier the way they used him, and tight ends, Jonnu Smith over Pitts, and it wasn't just the quarterback there. There was a lot of bad things going on there. I mean, what we saw from Arthur Smith last year, I don't know how big of an increase or improvement that is over Matt Canada. I just don't know. Wicked, you're gonna have to. I know the Pittsburgh fan wants it to be.
I don't like Najee. I don't think his running style translates very well in the NFL these days. And it's a running style that breaks down very easily as they age. And he came into the NFL as an older prospect. I think Jaylen Warren's going to take over a lot of the big plays. I think he's going to get a lot more playing time. I think you're going to start seeing a split that is not conducive to Najee being an effective fantasy running back. I think what they do offensively will be effective real life NFL on the field. But for fantasy purposes, I don't think Najee is going to be anything more than an RB2, maybe a flex guy.
All right. And George, anything to add to any of that?
Yeah, I want you to pay attention to the names of Alfonso Graham and Jack Coletto, because knowing what we know about Arthur Smith, those guys are going to be fantasy relevant at some point this year. That would be the third string running back and the fullback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. David probably knew exactly who I was talking about when I mentioned them being a Steelers homer, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not going to sit here and allow you to say that bringing in Arthur Smith was an upgrade over what you had at offensive coordinator. At absolute best, it was a lateral move. Jason hit the nail exactly on the head. You can't say the coach is not at fault for misusing his players when you see the way Bijan Robinson was used compared to Cordell Patterson and Tyler Algier and Jonnu Smith, and like it's just That's not on the quarterback. You know why it's not on the quarterback? The quarterback wasn't trusted to call the plays. So the plays were coming in from the guy on the sideline. And who sends in the personnel for those plays? The guy calling the plays. That would be Arthur Smith. Yeah, everything on that was Arthur Smith.
I can agree. So the tight end, Jonnu Smith over Kyle Pitts, that one definitely boggled my mind. But I'm not going to agree on the Tyler Algier getting the reps that he got after the year he had before Bijan, because a lot of people don't want these running backs coming in and being overloaded. Now, I think it was still too much of Tyler Algier, but Algier did, he did okay, and he had a great year the first year. They knew what they had in him. He knew the system while Bijan was coming in and learning. I don't blame them for – I think towards the end of the year they should have used Bijan a little bit more, but I thought it was a fair split to start off the season. I still have no excuse for Jonnu Smith over Kyle Pitts, though.
All right, so we're going to get into wide receivers. We'll go a little bit out of order since George just talked a lot. I'm going to go with wickets first. You have Deontay Johnson. I'm seeing a little bit of a trend. I think you think the Panthers are going to be better this year. Why don't you talk about Deontay Johnson to the Panthers?
I like Deontay Johnson, the player. He is a good receiver, just period. I think he's vastly underrated. I think he's been given the short stick a lot. I don't think Bryce Young's going to be the best thing that he's had since Roethlisberger retired. And I'm not saying Bryce Young's awesome, but he's going to be the best quarterback he's had in a long time. And Deontay gets open. He gives a good target for his quarterback. There's nobody that's going to steal targets from him. He's going to be option 1 and 2. And I think he's just going to get a ton of volume in a bad offense that is going to be playing from behind a lot, needs to throw the ball all the time. And that's going to make him fantasy relevant. I think that he is at worst a high-end wide receiver 3 this year. I could see him being a mid wide receiver 2 very easily. And you can buy him for next to nothing in your fantasy leagues because he's Deontay Johnson and nobody respects him. Nobody cares about him. So he's somebody that you can even just get on top of a larger deal for basically free in many cases.
What's interesting is I do think I'll have a lot of Deontay unless I'm drafting against George, because George usually has a lot of Deontay. I'll probably have him because I think he's a volume play that'll be going late in the drafts. But as far as rising goes, I don't know. I think he's going from, the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. I think the situation in Pittsburgh's a lot like the situation he's going to in Carolina. Average or a bad to mediocre quarterback play, bad to mediocre offense. He's going to get a lot of volume, not a lot of touchdown upside. So he's going to get a ton of targets and a ton of catches. And in PPR, that's going to be great. But I don't see it as a rise as much as it is kind of a leveling, again. I think it's a very similar situation to what he just left. Unless Young can make a giant leap. So, guys, any thoughts on Deontay? Pittsburgh fan?
I'll just say that, first off, Deontay's awesome. He has a top 5 open score. I think maybe even top, number 1 at one point. He gets open a ton. He just had no quarterbacks in Pittsburgh, unfortunately. But I also will go on record as saying, and this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've said it, I believe the Panthers pre-draft, the teams are looking right now, have a shot at winning that division next year. So I think they've improved the most in that division. I'm not convinced Kirk Cousins is actually going to do anything because he gets all the money, but he doesn't actually win playoff games or anything. So I'm not convinced he's going to win the division yet, as much as, that's the biggest move in the division. So I like Deontay Johnson going there.
So I have a tough time with the Panthers making that big of a leap. They would have had, the number 1 pick overall. That's a pretty big leap. It's not a great division for sure, but you've got a first-time head coach after 1 year of being an offensive coordinator, which is 1 year of calling offensive plays. You're giving that guy what was a dumpster fire without the number 1 pick, which they should have had, and a quarterback who didn't look that great last year. I don't believe that they may improve drastically. They've got better weapons. They've made some moves on the offensive line. They've had to spend a lot of money doing that. They've improved the defense for sure, but it's just a lot to go from the worst team, the absolute worst team in the NFL, on a first-year head coach with a bad quarterback. So
it sounds a whole lot like you just described Houston from last year. Obviously, Stroud excelled more than Bryce Young.
Yeah, well, that's the key. That Stroud came in hot.
Right. But now you don't have to improve drastically to win the NFC South. That division is the worst division in the NFC. If they improve moderately, they're in the race to win that division. I think the Bucs stayed even. They didn't really do anything new to me. They're still the favorite, but I think the Panthers have a shot at rising and possibly taking that division.
No way. No.
We'll have to. You know what? That's a bathroom bet that we'll have to make. I mean, you're taking the Panthers. I'd take the field, but if you need to tie me down to a team, that's fine too. I'll probably take the Falcons.
Wicked, I have a question for you.
What's that?
Is that a beer you're drinking, sir?
Yeah.
Dina just texted me and said that she's jealous. It's been about 9 months since she could have a beer. So
hey, she's in the home stretch. She does not have too long to go, man. Tell her to hang in there.
She wants me to sneak flasks into the hospital. So.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if she's going to be feeding, but she probably can't drink a whole lot if she's doing that. So she's got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on, we'll get to George's pick here. Marquise Hollywood Brown is George's riser for wide receivers. George, talk about, I mean, this one's kind of a slam dunk just because of the team he's going to, but talk about Marquise Hollywood Brown here.
Well, you look at what Kansas City did last year. Like they were hoping that Mecole Hardman would be their down the field guy. He ended up not being that guy. Sky Moore ended up not being the guy that they could trust. They went and traded for MVS because they knew what they were getting with MVS. This offseason, they let both Mecole Hardman and MVS walk. And they went out and they brought in Hollywood Brown, who is a proven commodity. He's a down the field stretcher, and that's exactly what the Chiefs were hoping to get with the two young guys in Mecole and MVS, and they just didn't get the production that they were looking for from that position, from that type of a player. Like I said, to bring in somebody who's proven, somebody who's done it. Hollywood Brown going to the Chiefs, he's not going to be the number 1 target there. He's not even going to be the number 2 target if you think about it. Number 1 was always going to be Travis Kelce. Number 2 will be Rashee Rice. So the pressure on him to be the number 1 or number 2 guy just does not exist within that offense. And then he's playing for Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's coming off injury, so it's up arrow for sure. He's coming from a bad situation, going to the Kansas City Chiefs. I worry about drops. That's something he's known for, which has been a problem in Kansas City, so I do worry about it a little bit. But look, he is a field stretcher, and they haven't had that in a while since Tyreek left. So I think it's a good fit, and I think he'll definitely get his there. Anybody have any arguments with me with Hollywood Brown?
Nope.
All right. And then David, you've got George Pickens. Let's talk it. You and I both picked from our favorite team, so we're both a bit homers here, but go ahead and talk about Pickens.
Listen, I could have put any Steeler in any of these spots, and I would have felt like I was right. We didn't do much offensively last year. I think even though we won most of our games, we got outgained in, 15 out of the 17 games. Like, it was something ridiculous. So there's nowhere to go but up. He also is now the hands-down number 1 wide receiver on that team. Russell Wilson's going to funnel the ball to him. I also want to say that next time we do something like this, I think George should answer last because he steals all my guys, because I was totally well.
All right. And I picked Mike Evans, who had a very good year last year. He has a very good year every year. The main reason I think he'll have a better year this year than last year is because second year with Baker, first year with Leon Cohen, Word around Tampa is Liam Cohen doesn't just have situational plays, but he has a sheet that says get the ball to your superstar play, and he does that regularly. You saw it with Cooper Kupp a couple years ago. And something that Dave Canales does is he schemes guys open, and that's not always your star. So you'd see big stretches last year with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin would just disappear from games, and you'd get guys like Trey Palmer the ball, K. Otten the ball, which is not bad if you're Trey Palmer or K. Otten, but I don't know. If I'm an NFL team and I've got Mike Evans, I probably want to get him the ball as often as possible. I think that's something the new offensive coordinator is looking to do. So I do think we'll see a lot more from there. All right. We've got tight ends. You know what? We're running long on time, so I'm just going to mention the tight ends. Dalton Schultz. George has got Dalton Schultz. David's got Kyle Pitts. Dylan's got Dalton Kincaid. And I've got Trey McBride. You know, it's pretty obvious for all four of those. Kyle Pitts doesn't have Arthur Smith anymore. Dalton Schultz
or
gets
the
to go back.
juggernaut Jonnu Smith.
And Dalton Schultz gets to go back to the Texans and play second year there. And Kincaid and McBride are coming off good rookie seasons with high upside. We don't need to get too deep into tight ends because, well, they're tight ends. So
there's like 5 good ones and then the rest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had a couple of good rookies last year, so that's the numbers increasing faster than guys are falling off. So there may be 12 usable starters at some point in the next couple of years, but we'll see. Before I jump into fallers, I do want to mention again the Gilded chat. We have over 200 people talking football in the Gilded chat. We have IDP talk. We have Dynasty talk. We talk about the NFL upcoming draft. We're running mock drafts all the time for the NFL, and then we'll be doing mock drafts on Monday nights. George and I run Mock Monday, and we'll be doing mock drafts, and that'll all be pulled from Gilded users, and it is free to join. We're talking about football. It's very cool, guys. Jump in, toiletstitles.com and at gmail.com. Sorry, toiletstitles at gmail.com, and Coach and Justin will get you into our Gilded chat where you can talk football with us pretty much 24/7. Got a couple comments. Just we're doing some of this. Join us on Gilded, backing up what I was talking about. And then Jerry says, love this coming year. Kincaid should get more love as well. Agree. I like Kincaid this year, especially as God, I can't remember. All of a sudden, I can't remember the wide receiver one's name. Stephon Diggs is it's getting late, guys. Stephon Diggs is taking a little bit of a step back, but that's good because Kincaid will be there to pick up some of that slack. All right, now we're going to talk about fallers who I just realized I probably should have picked Stephon Diggs, but I didn't. That's okay. We're going to talk quarterbacks. George, you've got Justin Herbert. Seems pretty obvious, but talk about it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he lost Mike Williams. He lost my other guy, Keenan Allen. Love Keenan Allen to death. Lost Austin Eckler. Brought in Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator. One thing Jim Harbaugh is notorious for is running the ball. Brought in Greg Roman, notorious for running the ball. Like the days of Justin Herbert slinging the ball 35 times a game, 40 times a game, yeah, you might see that once, maybe twice throughout the whole season, but you're not seeing that on a weekly basis coming out of the Chargers no more. They are going to run the freaking ball. You'll be lucky to get 25, maybe 30 attempts from Herbert. So from his fantasy, from a fantasy aspect, he went from being like potentially the QB1 to being, for me, a back end QB1. I have him he's probably in between the 8 to 12 range, which prior to this past year, like you would never have Justin Herbert that low as far as fantasy rankings.
I have him outside my top 12, so
that's not a surprise. I mean, yeah, it's not a surprise.
Doesn't run, so no rushing. I mean, he can a little bit, but no rushing upside to speak of. No offensive weapons to speak of, and a running coach. Like, outside my top 12 for sure. All right. David, why don't you talk about Dak Prescott as a faller?
I don't want to. I want George's pick. That was who I was going to go with as well. I mean,
That's
I think
fine.
We'll see. They picked up Edwards as the running back, and he's not going to be the hands-down starter. He's going to be the one coaching up Blake Corum when they draft him in the second round. But, yeah, Dak Prescott, I mean, he didn't lose his number one weapon, obviously, CeeDee Lamb, but he lost Pollard. He lost Gallup. He's just the weapons are going away and nobody's replacing them as of yet. The Cowboys are having the quietest offseason I think they've ever had. And so if you don't add, it's subtraction by subtraction. I don't know. To me, it just feels like he doesn't have the weapons he had last year. He has less. So until the draft, for me, he's a faller.
Wicked, do you agree Dak's a faller?
No, I don't. CeeDee Lamb is the only thing that Dak needs. Jake Ferguson's a good tight end. Year 3, I think he's going to take another step forward. They still have Brandon Cooks on the roster as wide receiver 2. Michael Gallup was toast after that last knee injury anyway, so him leaving in free agency is probably beneficial to the offense because he's not going to be on the field. He was a net negative every time that he was in the lineup. Jalen Tolbert will be a fine wide receiver 3, 4. I expect them to try to draft a wide receiver this year, especially since it's such a good class. They kind of shot themselves in the foot when they let Tyron Smith go because now they need a tackle, and then they let Biotish go, and now they need a center, and they're not doing anything about it. So I don't know if they'll be able to get a receiver in the draft. I hope they do, but the offense is going to be fine until we get to the playoffs, and then they'll fall flat again. But regular season is all that matters for fantasy football, and Dak's going to be really good during the regular season.
You know why this is delicious? Because you chose Russell Wilson and David chose Dak Prescott. So we're going to roll right into your pick of Russell Wilson as a faller here. So, and then get David's reaction to it as he leans in, trying to make it a power move. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Wicked.
So Russell Wilson has been a faller for like 2.5 years now, and I think he's going to continue to fall right out of a starting job before midseason. I don't think he looked good last year. I don't think it was because of the scheme. I don't think it was because of the coaching. I don't think it was because of the skill position players. I just don't think Russell Wilson's that good anymore. I think he's going to continue to get worse. The Steelers' offense is not any better than the Broncos' offense was as far as the talent available. So I don't think that's going to help him out any. And I think at some point that he's going to show that we don't have anything in Russell Wilson. We might as well trot Justin Fields out there and see if we want to give this kid an extension.
I love you, Wicked. Oh, Jesus. I mean, I can't disagree with any of the Russell Wilson specific analysis. All of that could possibly be true. I don't think he's as washed as other people think, but he is an aging quarterback. He is going to a new scheme yet again, and it's a first-year offensive coordinator. I highly disagree that our offense is on the same level as the Denver Broncos' horrible offense, but that'll be another thing, another show. That could possibly be an entire show. Interesting note about your Jalen Tolbert, though. One of my guys in my card group actually coached him in high school.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
That's very cool.
I got a question. Just looking at this panel real quick. Like, let's rank our home team's offenses. Like, so we're going to go Miami first, right? Like, of the panel, they probably have the best offense here.
Yeah.
And then I would probably go Dallas. And then I would go up to Tampa. And then I would go to the Steelers.
I disagree.
That would be my ranking as well.
I mean, I agree on the Dolphins, number one. I'm not sure Dallas's offense is going to be as good, but we'll see. Dak is more impressive than people have. You know, they've doubted him. It seems like every year, and he's done decent every year, better and better. So if he continues that trend, you know, Dak will be all right, I guess. I just don't like him. But But I think the Steelers are above the Bucks. I think the Bucks play in a really soft division, and the Steelers play in the hardest division in the NFL. I think we are.
But I mean, so you might be right there, but like, if you play in a hard division and have to play those teams, your offense won't look good, even if you think they are good. So, I mean, just by rankings.
We're going to have to come back. We're going to have to clip this and come back to this after the season.
We're going to circle back to this at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's okay. We can cut, what we can cut back to is I doing this show on a Sunday night last year, somebody asked me if I thought Kenny Pickett was an upgrade from Mason Rudolph, and I hesitated for a long time before I got browbeaten to saying yes. And it was a super soft yes, and I think I was proven a little bit right there because, I don't know, Mason Rudolph seemed to have played longer than Kenny Pickett. But anyway, so my faller is Kirk Cousins, and look, he is going to Atlanta, where they have Kyle Pitts and they have Drake London and they have Bijan. They don't have Justin Jefferson. They don't have Addison. Like their depth chart isn't as good to me as he was on the Vikings. They're going to Raheem Morris, who's his second stint as a head coach. Their offensive coordinator is fine. He's a disciple from the Rams. But I just think, the top end talent, while it's good, it's not as good as it was with the Vikings. So it's hard for me to say he's going to be as good as he was before. And yeah, I'm interested to see what you guys think, because Drake London's not Justin Jefferson, obviously. And then their number 2 wide receiver is not even Addison. And we had Dalvin Cook not last year, obviously. So Bijan is going to be a step up in the running game, but I think his pace last year, he was playing at an MVP caliber before he got hurt. So it's going to be tough for me to say that he's going to be better this year. Anybody disagree?
Jason, do you remember who the wide receiver 3 on the Minnesota Vikings was last year?
KJ Osborne.
Do you know who the number 3 wide receiver on the Atlanta Falcons is this year?
Is it KJ Osborne?
It is KJ Osborne. So they're even. They're absolutely even.
Well,
who's
the wide receiver 2 on that team?
Mooney.
Okay.
Darnell Mooney.
I mean, I take Addison over Mooney I don't know.
So I don't I don't know if I would actually take. I think Addison, and I probably should have put him on as a regress for me at wide receiver. I'm just not sold like this year that Addison is going to be as good as he was last year, especially depending on what they do with the quarterback.
Well, no, so sure. Addison's a fall now, but what I would say is I would take Jefferson over London. I would take Addison over Mooney. I would take KJ Osborne.
You would take KJ Osborne over KJ Osborne, right?
KJ Osborne. I would take Hockenson over Pitts. So like the only position I think is an upgrade. The only position I think is an upgrade is Bijan over Madison. So
I think the quarterback is actually an upgrade for the Falcons. If you look at they had to do,
you think Kirk Cousins is better than Kirk Cousins?
No, I think Kirk Cousins is better than Joshua Dobbs and who else did they run out at quarterback last year when Kirk Cousins went down?
Ritter, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So I think Kirk Cousins is an upgrade over that. Is what I'm saying. But no, I just wanted to point out that they had the same wide receiver 3, to be honest.
All right.
Here's my question for you.
That's all.
Here's my question for you, Jason. Do you know who any of his weapons were back when he was with Washington? Because he was putting up QB1 numbers then as well. He's a QB1 kind of quarterback. He's a statistical quarterback in every offense he's been in. I don't doubt that he's going to statistically light it up. I doubt that team's good enough, or that he's good enough to win playoff games, because he seems, shy about it. But during the season, he's been great with every team, no matter whether he's had Justin Jefferson or not. Statistically,
Kirk's gonna Kirk, man. He's gonna be a low end QB1, and it doesn't matter what team he's on. Doesn't matter how good his weapons are. He's never going to win the Super Bowl, but he's going to do enough to be fantasy relevant.
As long as it's not past 8 p.m. on a Sunday evening,
That's right,
or Monday night primetime game. Because then Kirk's going to Kirk then too, but it's not pretty.
Yep. It's not good.
He's got this.
Unless it's the Steelers offense.
He's got to be in bed no later than 7:30. So those late Monday night, Sunday night primetime games historically have not been very kind to him because the body's used to being asleep at that time.
And Jerry wants to throw in that Lamar is going to be his faller. He was great, but won't repeat those MVP numbers.
I hope that's true.
Yeah, but he's not.
The MVP numbers weren't that great
he had
anyway.
a good season, but he's not going to fall very far.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his MVP numbers, statistically, if you just look at the numbers and take away the player name, they weren't that great anyway.
It was a weak MVP quarterback season.
It absolutely was. If he puts up the same exact numbers this year, statistically speaking, he's probably not going to be the MVP. It's just the statistics. 32. At least 31. He's going to be at least better than Russ.
Okay, I'll go with that. Russ is only going to play 6 games anyway. Justin will come in and show him how it's done.
All right, guys, we are running pretty long, so I'm going to get through this. I promise. George, you've got Austin Eckler as a faller. Go ahead and speak to that.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be used nearly as much as he was in LA for the Chargers. I expect to see a lot of Robinson on first and second down. I think Austin Eckler's career at this point is transitioning into more of a third down back. He'll still be fantasy relevant, but I don't think he's going to be, as relevant for fantasy purposes as he's traditionally been for the Chargers. I don't think he's a running back 1 at all. I think he's more of a solid running back 2.
So I do see this as like a career fall, but does anybody think he's going to have a worse season this year than he had last year with the Chargers? Because last year was pretty dreadful already.
I'm real nervous.
Yeah, I mean, same here. You look at the quarterback play. They traded Sam Howell, so we don't even know who the quarterback is. We assume they're drafting one. If it's me, I think they pick second. I'm taking Jaden Daniels, but the NFL loves Drake May. They absolutely love Drake May. Personally, I would go Daniels, but that's just me. The coaching staff is all new. The talent at wide receivers is nice with Terry McLaurin and Johan Dotson, but it's still a downgrade from the outside weapons that were there to take a little pressure off the running back out in in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So it's a downgrade all across the board. And you look at how bad the offensive line was last year for Washington. Like Sam Howell, give him all the credit in the world for being able to play the whole year, but that offensive line was absolutely atrocious.
Absolutely. And then, David, you've got Tajay Spears. Is that just a product of Pollard coming in?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we can all agree to that. And I've got Devin Singletary, and that's moving from a high-powered offense with the Texans, where he was in a pretty good position, to moving. I mean, look, if Saquon couldn't get it done for the Giants, I can't imagine Devin Singletary will be able to go up there and make a big difference. So that's why I picked Devin Singletary. And Wicked, you've got Damian Pierce, and is that just because all of a sudden Mixon's on the scene?
Man, Pierce couldn't hold off Singletary last year. He's definitely not holding off Mixon. So I think Pierce's days are done fantasy-wise for a while.
Yeah, I mean, he's not this coaching staff's draft pick, and he was real inefficient last year. So, like you said, he couldn't hold off Singletary. And then, Jerry, I'm going to keep posting yours because I like your answers. Aaron Jones in a bad offense. I don't know, like they don't have a quarterback, so they're going to have to rely on him.
Yeah, and I'm not sure
that's what I'm saying.
I think they're a bad defense.
Yeah, I like Aaron Jones on the Raiders. I think he's going to get a ton of volume.
Vikings.
Vikings rather. Sorry, for some reason I thought he went to the Raiders. But still, I like him on the Vikings. Like he's exactly what Dalvin Cook was when Dalvin Cook was in his prime. He can catch the ball at the backfield. He can run it between the tackles. He still has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the outside. You expect them to trade up for a quarterback with the 2 firsts that they've acquired. So I don't know how you could say that's a bad offense. It's really not a bad offense. He fits exactly what they've been trying to do historically there with Dalvin Cook, and then they were hoping Madison could do the same thing, but Madison he sucks. Plain and simple. He's a bad running back.
Counterpoint, Sam Darnold.
Counterpoint, they're going to draft a rookie quarterback.
Listen, even if they don't, again, this is still
Sam Darnold can run that offense.
Yeah, this is the best offense that Sam Darnold's had since he's been in the league. He came in as a number 3 highly touted pick. I'm not sure he's ever had a better team. He went from the Jets, who nobody's been good on for years, to Carolina, who he beat out Baker Mayfield, and we just saw what he did with a good team. Now Sam Darnold's going to the best team offensively he's ever had.
Yeah, hopefully San Francisco fixed him. Because the Jets sure did ruin him, right? All right, so that is our running backs. We're going to get into wide receivers. George, you've got Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins as fallers, even though you had Will Levis as a riser.
Yeah, I think those two, and I could have put Treylon Burks and Chika Okonkwo on here as well, but it's a great offensive skills positions that the Titans have. Like, I really do like their skill position players, but I don't think there's going to be, like, DeAndre Hopkins is not going to be the target monster that he's been historically. He's not going to get fed the ball religiously like he's done almost year in, year out. Calvin Ridley coming in, he's had good games, he's had bad games, he's been super inconsistent. I think it's great for Will Levis because it gives him more weapons, but I think the weapons on Tennessee itself is just going to cannibalize each other, and for them individually, for fantasy purposes, I don't really like it that much.
I agree. Absolutely agree. All right, David, you've got Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, he plays for the Browns. They run the ball.
He plays for the Browns.
I mean, he's got Deshaun Watson coming back as his quarterback 1 too.
For what, 3 weeks, and then they're going to have their next guy, and then 3 weeks till the next guy. Like, I'm not Jerry Jeudy. They just overpaid him as well. It cracks me up. I love having them in our division.
And then you've got Justin Jefferson, Wicked.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins is an underrated quarterback. I don't care who they bring in. He's not going to be as good as Kirk Cousins was for Justin Jefferson. They had a great connection. Justin Jefferson is still an elite wide receiver, and he's going to do his thing no matter who's throwing the ball. But if the inaccurate passes go up 12%, it's going to affect his numbers. So it's going to be tough for him to maintain that wide receiver 1 that he's dominated for years now.
Till he gets traded to the Steelers and has Justin Fields.
Not going to happen.
And then I've got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen as fallers there, and it's not because Justin Fields was any good last year. He was okay. But Keenan Allen's going to take away from DJ Moore, and then they're going to have a rookie passing him the ball. And historically, Stroud notwithstanding, historically rookie quarterbacks don't bring in top 12 wide receivers all that often. So I see DJ Moore. I think he was fantasy wide receiver 6 at the end of the year. Somebody can vet that, but it was either 4 or 6 for sure, and most of that was based off one really boom kind of game. And Keenan Allen had an absolute monster year, but he doesn't have Herbert throwing him the ball anymore. So I think both of those wide receivers are going to be fallers this year. Anybody disagree?
I think Keenan can still have a really good season. He just because he gets open. His game is not built on being a dominant physical presence. He's a good route runner. He's going to, whatever quarterback's back there, he's going to give them a wide open target to hit over and over again. And so I think he's still going to get a lot of volume. I think this move hurts DJ Moore far more than it hurts Keenan Allen.
I know DJ Moore was talking on Twitter about a race to 1,000 I'm not sure if he was talking about like air yards unrealized because of errant throws, or I don't know. But I'd be surprised if either one of them hits 1,000 this year. But good luck to them. I'm rooting for him. It'd be nice to see Chicago do well for once. And then we've got fallers at tight end. So David, you've got Cole Kmet, and I've got Jonnu Smith. But really, when you're talking about tight ends, it's just,
there's, like Wicked said, there's the top 5, and then there's the rest. When I'm drafting for a fantasy team, my rule is if I don't get one of those, and they still have to fall to me in a decent spot, if I don't get one of those top 5, I won't draft my tight end till round 15, 16, 17, because all the guys in between they're the same guy.
Who's the Steelers' backup tight end? Is it Washington?
Yeah.
Okay. I might be drafting him late because Arthur Smith likes to screw around with backup tight ends.
Oh, man. Is he about to totally ruin my dude?
He's absolutely about to totally ruin your dude. He's about to ruin your whole season. I apologize to you. But with that, we've gone through our risers and fallers. 2 weeks from now, let me check this. Oh, next week is Easter. So 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing a show. We won't be doing a show on Easter. In between that time, David's going to have a couple of kids.
Literally
a couple of kids. And that'll be mostly Dana, who's is she still watching?
I don't know. Maybe she was gonna start getting snacks together for us to watch a movie, but she might have fallen asleep in there. So she said the dog snoring was making her go to sleep. So
she's got way more important stuff than to watch this. But Dana, if you're watching, good luck in a couple of days. David will be rooting for you. We expect a bunch of pictures, especially in those onesies you got. So
they'll be in.
Did we talk? Is it a boy and a girl?
A boy and a girl.
So
it's actually the hardest thing right now because we keep getting stuff and nobody's getting us 2 Steelers things and 2 Bengals things. Everybody's sending us 1 Steelers thing and 1 Bengals thing. And we're like, do we have to choose which of these babies is going to be the Steelers fan and which is going to be the fan? Like we have to
plant your flag, man.
Huh?
You got to plant your flag.
I already told them I'm claiming them both because the older girls, they both cheer for the Bengals. So these ones are mine.
So the baby's going to be Joe and Burrow? Is that what the name is?
No, I think we're going with Who and Day.
Who and Day.
Go Joe and Sync.
Oh, look, Dina said she's here.
Dina, are you Joe and Burrow, I think. Like, send David out for some ice chips and pick the names.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, go with the names.
You ain't getting no ice chips.
Go with the names Ocho and Cinco. You cannot go wrong.
Literally, I hate that dude's name so much. I hated it when he made that his name.
All right, so with that, I think we're going to bring this to a close. I do again want to mention our Gilded chat, toiletstitles@gmail.com to jump in, and you can chat with us at any time of the night. It is free to join. I have to say it again, it's free to join. Patreon.com/toilets-to-titles. You can join. We have tiers for basically every salary, from super inexpensive to, oh my God, I can't believe you spent that. George is going to come over and do all kinds of things for you around the house.
It's the $1 million tier.
It's going to look, David, if you join the Patreon and want George to come take care of the kids so you and the missus can have a night out, he would do that for sure. So patreon.com/toiletstitles. On top of that, we have shows going on all the time. We have our Tuesday night show. But throughout the off season, we have a ton of content. So check us out, toiletstitles.com. You can catch us on YouTube and Twitter. We have content going nonstop. So toiletstitles.com, toiletstitles pretty much everywhere. We picked a very unique name. So when you see it, it's us. So we've got stuff going on all the time, including drafts. We'll have fantasy football drafts coming up. And then during the season, of course, we have, the start sit show. And it's really hard to say that without cussing. So I'm proud of myself right there. So we've got stuff going on all the time. So check us out everywhere you can at Toilets of Titles. For David, for Wicked, for George, I want to say thank you for watching tonight. Guys, have a great week. Have a great Easter. And we will see you in 2 weeks right here at 9 o'clock. Good night.